Meanwhile, Daniel Altman is a professor at New York University's Stern School of Business. He is also senior editor at Foreign Policy magazine and contributes to The New Yorker on soccer analytics. Daniel Altman joins us now from New York. Daniel, hello to you. I want to begin with the impact of this scandal on the sport itself. Do you think this is going to hurt soccer or football?
No, I don't think so. I think that all of the soccer tournaments will go forward as planned. I think that people who follow certain teams and players will not diminish at all in their enthusiasm. What this really is about is the future of FIFA, the organization, and the way that it hands out all of the cash payments that come to it as a result of sponsorships and broadcast rights for tournaments. In the past, under Joseph Sepp Blatter, who hasn't been indicted but is certainly implicated in some of these investigations and allegations, there's been a lot of patronage, and there's been a lot of handouts and lucrative business deals going to some of the poorer members of FIFA and their associations. The question is whether that will continue to happen, because that really is the ground for his support as president of the organization.
Well, he's been president since 1998. There is an election to be had on Friday. He's running once again. Do you think those elections will go ahead? I know FIFA wants them to go ahead, but there now seems to be some questions as to whether or not it should.
Yeah, the European Union of Soccer Federations, which is known as UEFA, has started to intimate that they would like to postpone the election, which is scheduled for Friday. The FIFA Executive Committee, I believe, would need to see a vote of about 3/4 in favor of that motion for it to occur. It's not clear right now how much support Blatter retains. He had been viewed as a lock to be reelected for his 5th term, but now he faces only one opposition candidate. That's Prince Ali from Jordan, and obviously these latest indictments are not going to help his case. So I think that there were some people who thought that maybe the election would be a little bit closer, but I don't know if there are 3/4 of people who would vote for it to be postponed.
Well, as you know, the Swiss have also launched a separate investigation beyond that, which the United States has already done on their own. I'm wondering about Qatar. They're set to host in 2022. A lot of questions as to how that decision was arrived. There are suggestions that, too, should be revisited. Do you think Qatar will be revisited?
Well, those questions have been around for a long time, mostly because of the human rights abuses that we've seen amongst the migrant workers who are constructing the enormous stadiums and cities, indeed, for the tournament in 2022. There have been hundreds of deaths already that are associated with this great project. And, you know, the major implications of the lawsuits are that there was a lot of corruption in the bidding that led to Qatar being awarded that World Cup. So now there are two things that potentially could get in the way of that World Cup actually happening. My question is whether these things really are going to change FIFA's base position, which is that going to Qatar is better than not going to Qatar, because if they didn't go at all, there'd be no pressure on the Qataris to change any of their labor practices or human rights for migrant workers.
And what about FIFA itself? You know, people love soccer around the world. And in fact, we've had this discussion here in the newsroom where these scandals come out. They've been rumored for years, for decades, and yet it continues because people love soccer so much around the world. Is there an alternative to FIFA? Are people talking about an alternative to FIFA to try to restore some integrity to the game?
Well, a few months ago, I wrote an article in Foreign Policy saying that an independent entrepreneur could easily start their own tournament and pay millions of dollars to the players and coaches and indeed to the national associations to get them to show up and create essentially an alternative World Cup. That's even easier because the World Cup in Qatar is scheduled to happen in the winter. It would be too hot to do it there in the summer, but that leaves the traditional time for a World Cup, the summer, open. It certainly could happen. It would probably be profitable as well. The question is whether anybody will jump in and try and do it. Right now, I feel like it's still early days, but you know, that World Cup is still another 7 years away.
Daniel, thank you very much for your insight. That is Daniel Altman joining us from New York, a professor and a journalist who writes on soccer analytics.